Welcome to a city where the streets are cold, the people colder, and laughter is more unsettling than comforting. In the heart of Gotham, one man is slowly falling apart, ignored, mocked, and pushed to the very edge of sanity. Sanitary. But what happens when a man who's been broken by the world stops trying to fit in and starts embracing the chaos? This is not your typical villain story. This is the haunting transformation of Arthur Fleck, a man who only ever wanted to make people smile, but instead becomes the very face of fear. Brace yourself for a deep, disturbing journey into the mind of a man society refused to hear until he made them listen. The film Joker begins in a city where the rich and the poor live side by side, but the gap between them is massive. The wealthy live lavish lives and look down on the struggling lower class, offering them neither respect nor dignity. At the heart of this harsh, divided city lives Arthur Fleck, a quiet, awkward man who shares a small apartment with his mother. Arthur dreams of becoming a successful stand-up comedian. He idolizes a famous talk show host and imagines himself on that show one day, receiving applause and laughter. That dream is what keeps him going. Arthur works as a clown for hire, advertising for local businesses. One day, he stands on the sidewalk dressed in full clown makeup, spinning a signboard to attract customers. Suddenly, a group of teenage boys approaches him. They mock him, snatch the sign, and run off laughing. Arthur chases after them, desperate to get it back. But it's a trap. The kids lure him into an alley, smash the sign across his face, and then beat him mercilessly. Bruised and humiliated, Arthur drags himself to his workplace and explains what happened. Instead of sympathy, his employer lashes out at him. "Are you serious? How could kids do this to you?" The boss snaps. "You lost the sign. That's your fault. Don't expect to get paid." Arthur says nothing. He doesn't defend himself. His confidence is too low, buried under years of neglect and mistreatment. He silently walks out of the office, broken and defeated. On the street, he looks around and thinks, "Am I really that worthless? Why does no one ever believe me?" Back at home, to cope with the pain, Arthur begins to dance slowly in front of the mirror. It's a strange, haunting movement. His body is frail and thin, his face still marked from the beating, but this dance seems to bring him a strange sense of calm, even joy. The next day at work, Arthur tells a coworker about the attack. The coworker, pretending to care, hands Arthur a revolver. "Keep this with you," he says. "You never know when it'll come in handy." Arthur hesitates, saying he doesn't want it, but the man forces it into his hands. Arthur doesn't argue. He quietly slips the gun into his pocket. Later, Arthur boards a city bus to go home. A little boy sitting in front of him catches his eye. Arthur, trying to lighten his own mood, makes funny faces to entertain the child. The boy giggles out loud, but the boy's mother turns around sharply. "Leave him alone," she snaps. "Stop bothering us." Arthur bursts out laughing, but it's not laughter from joy. It's involuntary. He can't control it. It grows louder and louder, and the mother glares at him in disgust. This is when we learn the truth. Arthur has a mental condition that causes him to laugh uncontrollably at inappropriate moments. He even carries a card that explains his disorder, but no one takes the time to understand him. Returning home, Arthur quietly takes his medications. These are essential for his mental health, but they're expensive and hard to get. Since he can't afford them, he depends on a government clinic to get them for free. One day, he visits his psychiatrist. She looks tired and uninterested, barely listening to him. She asks to see his journal. "Show me your diary," she says. Arthur hesitantly opens it. Among the chaotic scribbles and dark jokes, she finds a haunting sentence. "I just don't want to die badly, like I've lived." Her expression changes for a moment, but she still doesn't offer him real help. Arthur feels like he's just another case file in a broken system. Later, at home, his mother asks, "Did any letter come today from Thomas?" Arthur replies coldly, "No, not today either." Thomas Wayne is a wealthy and powerful businessman. People speak his name with both fear and respect. Arthur's mother believes Thomas will help them once he knows their situation. "He'll support us," she insists. "He was always kind to me." Arthur doesn't believe her, but he doesn't argue either. One evening, while walking home, Arthur crosses paths with a young single mother and her daughter in the elevator. She gives him a small smile. Something about her warms his heart, and he starts to like her. But for now, he simply nods and walks away. Back home, his mother again brings up Thomas and the missing letter. This time, Arthur snaps. "He won't help us. Why do you even think he would? What's your connection to him?" The next day, the same woman, his neighbor, shows up at his door. She says, "I've noticed you've been following me. Is everything okay?" Arthur looks nervous, but he admits honestly, "Yes, I like you." She laughs, surprised, but not in a mocking way. A strange friendship begins to bloom between them. Meanwhile, Arthur gets a new opportunity to perform as a comedian at a children's hospital event. Dressed in his clown outfit, he dances and entertains the children. But during his performance, the revolver, still hidden in his pocket, falls to the floor with a loud clunk. The room goes silent. Children stare in shock. Nurses panic. The performance ends abruptly. Arthur is immediately fired. He calls his employer to explain. It was just a toy gun, he insists. But his boss replies coldly, "Don't lie. Your coworker already told me everything. You took the gun from him." Arthur is devastated. The same man who forced the gun on him has now betrayed him. Once again, he is blamed, unheard, and discarded. Later that night, Arthur boards a train to go home. It's dimly lit and nearly empty, except for three well-dressed businessmen. They're drunk and laughing loudly, clearly men who work for Thomas Wayne. A young woman sits nearby, trying to ignore their lewd behavior as they harass her. Arthur watches in silence, but then his uncontrollable laughter erupts again. The men turn to him, confused and irritated. "You think that's funny?" one of them snaps. Arthur tries to explain, holding up his card, but they don't listen. Instead, they drag him from his seat and begin to beat him savagely. His nose bleeds and his laughter turns into silent screams. Then suddenly, bang! Arthur pulls out the gun. He shoots two of them instantly. With a blank, almost trance-like expression, he shoots the last man on the stairs of the subway station. For the first time, Arthur fights back, and something changes inside him. The fear in his eyes slowly disappears, replaced by an unsettling calm. This act of violence marks a turning point in his life. Arthur Fleck, the invisible man, the misunderstood outcast, has just stepped into the spotlight, but not as a comedian, as something much darker. Later at home, Arthur watches the TV. A news report flashes across the screen. Thomas Wayne is holding a press conference. He says, "Those three young men who were killed on the subway, they worked for me. They were murdered by a man wearing a clown mask." What's more surprising is the public's reaction. Instead of mourning the dead men, people are starting to praise the mysterious clown. Protests begin across the city, and the poor are rallying in clown masks, seeing the killer not as a villain, but as a symbol of resistance against the rich and powerful. Arthur quietly watches all this unfold. A part of him is disturbed, but another part is strangely proud. He visits his psychiatrist again, but this time her tone is more final than usual. "We won't be meeting anymore," she says. "The government has cut our funding." "I'm sorry, Arthur." He stares at her blankly. Another door in his life closes. Another support system disappears. He walks out, feeling completely abandoned once again. Soon after, he tries performing at a comedy club. He steps onto the stage, hoping to make people laugh, but instead, he begins to laugh uncontrollably himself, his disorder interrupting every attempt at a joke. The audience grows uncomfortable. Murmurs start. His act falls apart. Ashamed, he returns home. His mother, sitting on the couch with a letter in her hand, says, "My son, please, send this letter to Thomas Wayne." Curious, Arthur takes the letter and opens it. As he reads, his eyes widen in shock. His mother had been writing letters to Thomas all this time because she believes Thomas Wayne is Arthur's father. Furious and confused, Arthur confronts her. "Why didn't you tell me?" he shouts. His mother looks at him with a mixture of fear and sadness. "I didn't want to hide it from you, but I had no choice. We loved each other, Arthur. We wanted to marry. But I was poor, and he came from a powerful family. Society wouldn't allow it." With questions burning in his heart, Arthur sets out to meet the man who might be his father, Thomas Wayne. He reaches the Grand Wayne Manor. A tall gate surrounds the property. Behind it, Arthur spots a young boy playing. It's Bruce, Thomas Wayne's son. Arthur kneels in front of the gate and begins entertaining the child, making silly faces and doing magic tricks. The boy watches silently, curious and confused. Then, a stern voice interrupts. It's Alfred, the family's loyal caretaker. He rushes over and scolds the child. "Don't talk to strangers." He turns to Arthur. "You need to leave." Arthur stands his ground. "I just want to talk. My mother worked for this house for 30 years. She and Thomas were in love. I'm his son." Alfred glares at him. "Your mother is delusional. None of that is true. You're not his son. She made the whole thing up." Arthur stares at him, heart pounding. He feels dizzy, as if the ground beneath him is breaking apart. Without another word, he turns and walks away. Back home, things go from bad to worse. He finds out his mother has collapsed from a stroke. She's been rushed to the hospital. Arthur rushes there and sits outside the room, numb. That's when two detectives approach him. "We're investigating the subway murders," one of them says. "Do you know anything about the three men who were killed?" Arthur blinks, then shakes his head. "No. How would I know anything about that?" But behind his eyes, there's something he's not saying. Something darker is beginning to rise. Arthur finds out that the police had questioned his mother earlier, asking her the same things they asked him about the subway killings. The interrogation took a toll on her. That's what triggered her collapse. At the hospital, Arthur quietly enters her room. A social worker is already sitting by her side, talking to her gently. Arthur stands silently, watching his mother, frail, weak, and now barely able to respond. Suddenly, the TV grabs his attention. His favorite late-night show is on. Arthur's eyes light up. His idol, the legendary comedian and talk show host Murray Franklin, is speaking on screen. Arthur has admired him for years, someone who gave him hope in his darkest times. But his excitement quickly turns into confusion. A clip begins to play. His clip. It's from the night he tried stand-up at the comedy club, the same night everything went wrong. The audience on the show bursts into laughter, not with Arthur, but at him. Even Murray is laughing, throwing out jokes at Arthur's expense. Arthur freezes. His chest tightens. His smile slowly fades. He had once dreamed of being invited to this show as a guest. Now he's nothing more than a punchline. My hero is mocking me, he whispers to himself. The man who inspired me laughs at my pain. Heartbroken and angry, Arthur watches as the city continues to spiral out of control. News channels flash images of protesters filling the streets, people from the poor and working class, all wearing clown masks. They see the clown as a symbol of resistance, a rebellion against the elite, and at the center of their hatred stands Thomas Wayne. Arthur's face twitches with a mix of emotion. For the first time, he feels noticed, praised, like he's part of something bigger. Meanwhile, a major protest is happening outside a theater where wealthy people, including Thomas Wayne, are watching a classic film. Chaos erupts. The police try to hold back the angry mob, but the crowd is unstoppable. Amid the confusion, Arthur slips inside the Grand Theater unnoticed. The golden lights flicker as he walks through the corridor. His footsteps echo as he finds his way into the restroom. And there, standing by the mirror, is Thomas Wayne. Arthur gathers his courage and approaches him slowly. Mr. Wayne, he says softly, I'm your son. Please, think about it. You and my mother, you were close once. Thomas turns sharply, shocked by the claim. I don't know your mother, he snaps. Arthur tries again, voice trembling. Penny Fleck, she worked for you for 30 years. You too. Before he can finish, Thomas punches him hard in the face. Arthur stumbles back. Blood pours from his nose. Stay away from my family. Thomas growls and storms out. Arthur, devastated, returns home. Every part of him is aching. His body, his heart, his mind. Then the phone rings. It's the police again. They want to question him about the subway murders. Before he can respond, another message reaches him, one that lights up something inside him. Murray Franklin has invited Arthur to appear on his show. His shaky performance clip had gone viral. People found it hilarious, and not in the way Arthur wanted. Still, the show gained high ratings from it. And now, Murray wants him on the set as a guest. Arthur is thrilled. It feels like a dream. He begins preparing for the appearance, but something nags at him. That caretaker at Wayne Manor, he called Arthur's mother delusional, said everything was made up. What if it was true? Determined to find the truth, Arthur heads to the psychiatric hospital where his mother was once admitted. He asks for her medical records, but they refuse, so he waits for a moment, then snatches the file and runs. Breathing heavily, he hides in a corner and opens the file. His hands tremble as he reads. The report says Arthur was adopted. His mother had a history of delusions and mental illness. There's no mention of Thomas Wayne being involved. It also says that Arthur was abused by one of his mother's past partners. He was tied to a radiator, beaten, and suffered a serious head injury as a child. That's where his condition started. Arthur's world falls apart. Everything he believed was a lie. His entire identity was built on a story that wasn't real. Feeling betrayed and hollow, he walks through the city like a ghost, lost in his thoughts. Eventually, he ends up at the door of his neighbor, the single mother he had a crush on. But something's off. The woman he thought cared for him, the single mother next door, was never real. Every smile, every conversation, every moment they shared, all of it existed only in his mind. She was just a figment of his imagination. Arthur stares blankly into space. His mind races. What's real anymore? But his thoughts quickly shift back to his mother, who still lies in the hospital. The pain she caused him now feels unbearable. Driven by a wave of silent rage and confusion, Arthur makes his way to the hospital. In her quiet room, he approaches her bed slowly. He stares at her for a long moment, tears welling in his eyes. Then, without a word, he picks up a pillow and smothers her. Arthur kills the only person he ever called family. When he returns home, he finds an old photograph tucked away in one of his mother's belongings. On the back of the photo, written in elegant handwriting, are the words, I love your smile, TW. It was a photo of his mother, and it was signed by Thomas Wayne. Arthur's hands tremble. His heart pounds. Could it be true? Had she really known Thomas? Suddenly, the lines between truth and madness blur again. Maybe his mother wasn't lying after all. Something inside him changes. He pulls out his makeup and begins to transform, painting his face, step by step, into the clown. Each brushstroke feels like shedding his past and stepping into someone new. There's no expression on his face now. Just a haunting calmness. Then, there's a knock at the door. One of his former co-workers from the clown agency enters. He says the police want to question Arthur about his mother's sudden death and the murder of the 3 young men on the train. Arthur stares at him quietly. He smiles, gently locks the door, and then, without warning, attacks. It's a brutal, horrifying scene. Arthur murders his former colleague in cold blood. He then calmly washes up, puts on his clown suit, and dances to the sound of chaos swirling in his mind. It's time. He's headed to his longtime dream, an appearance on his favorite late-night show hosted by Murray Franklin. Arthur walks through the city, dancing, smiling. His movements are erratic, yet graceful, but the police are still after him. Two detectives who've been tracking the subway killings spot him on the street and begin chasing. Arthur runs. He dives into the nearest subway train. Inside, the train is packed with protesters wearing clown masks, people now marching against the elite, inspired by the mysterious subway killer. The police push through the crowd trying to find him, but everyone looks like Arthur. He blends in perfectly. Fights break out. Chaos erupts in the carriage. Using the distraction, Arthur escapes the train and disappears into the city. Finally, he arrives at the TV studio. Backstage, he waits with a strange calm. Murray Franklin walks in and jokes with him. Arthur, still in full clown makeup, smiles and asks quietly, "Are you in clown makeup too? Are you part of the revolution against the rich?" Murray chuckles awkwardly. Arthur looks at him with sharp eyes and says, "Please, just introduce me as Joker. Don't say anything else. Let them see me as I am, an ordinary clown." Then, the stage lights turn on. The cameras go live. The crowd erupts in applause. Joker walks on stage with a twisted smile. People cheer. They think it's all part of the act. Murray starts with a lighthearted question. "Why the clown look, Arthur?" Joker responds softly, "I've always tried to be happy, to spread joy." He pauses, then says, "People liked me like this, so I chose to come as a clown." But then something shifts. Joker leans forward, his voice steady and calm. "I have something to confess," he says. "Those 3 men on the train, I killed them." The studio falls silent. "I'm telling you this because nobody ever talks about the real violence. What the rich do to the poor people die every day, and no one says a word." He looks directly into the camera, but when someone like me fights back, suddenly everyone notices. The crowd gasps. The mood changes instantly. Joker has just confessed to murder, live on television. The audience stares in silence. Isn't all human life equal? Or is there something special about the rich that makes their lives more valuable? He pauses, scanning the room, then says coldly, "This society, it's rotten. The people in it are selfish and blind. You didn't invite me here out of sympathy. You brought me on this show just because my madness was good for your ratings." The host, Murray Franklin, tries to calm him. "That's not true at all, Arthur," he says, but Arthur glares at him. "Still lying to my face," he mutters, his voice rising with anger. And then, without warning, Arthur reaches into his jacket, pulls out a gun, and shoots him right there on live television. Panic erupts. The crowd screams. People rush toward the exits. Chaos explodes in the studio. But Arthur? He stands there calmly, completely unfazed. There's no fear on his face, only a twisted sense of relief. Soon after, the police arrive and arrest Arthur for the shocking murder. He's handcuffed, shoved into the back of a police car, and driven through the riot-filled streets of Gotham. But as the car moves through the city, Arthur sees something unexpected through the window. Thousands of protesters in clown masks flood the streets, chanting, cheering. They're not protesting against him. They're celebrating him. To them, he's a symbol, a voice for the voiceless. Suddenly, an ambulance smashes violently into the side of the police car. Crash! The door is flung open. Arthur is pulled out of the wreckage by 2 masked protesters. They lay him gently on the hood of the crashed police car, like a fallen king being resurrected. Slowly, Arthur rises. Blood trickles from his mouth and nose, but he doesn't wipe it off. Instead, he reaches up and draws a wide, bloody smile across his face. Then he stretches out his arms and laughs. It's a haunting, painful laugh, filled with both madness and victory. The crowd cheers wildly around him. In that moment, Arthur Fleck fully becomes Joker. He's no longer a lonely man crushed by the world. He's a symbol of rebellion, chaos, and twisted freedom. On the other side of the city, Thomas Wayne and his family are trying to escape the unrest. They rush into a dark alley, but a man in a clown mask follows them and shoots Thomas and his wife. Their son, young Bruce, is left standing there, alone, in shock. This tragic moment plants the seed for Gotham's future savior. Back in the final scenes, the story cuts to a stark white room. Arthur is now inside Arkham State Hospital, sitting across from a psychiatrist. He laughs to himself, quietly at first, then louder. The psychiatrist, confused, asks, "What's so funny?" Arthur looks at her, a strange calm in his eyes. "You wouldn't get it," he replies softly. Moments later, we see him walking down the hallway, his shoes leaving bloody footprints on the white tile floor. It's a haunting image. This once innocent man, destroyed by cruelty, pain, and neglect, has now become a monster. A man who once wanted to make the world laugh, now laughs alone, in madness. The final message is chilling. When society continues to mistreat and ignore the broken, even the kindest soul can turn into the cruelest villain. And with that, the movie ends, on a smile that hides a world of sorrow.